But I don't think I'm letting you guys off the hook. Because today, we do special work with language. Let me ask you this. Did you enjoy yesterday, particularly what we built up towards, which was last night, the dynamic mental imagery induction? You know why it's called the dynamic mental imagery induction? Any ideas? It's called, go ahead.
Because you're not just imagining something, you're imagining a process happening. So.
It's close. It's called mental imagery because you're using mental imagery, right? Whether or not you can see the pictures, it's still there, right? It's dynamic because you're actually doing something with it. You're interacting. You're not just throwing something at someone, you're interacting with them. And you're actually inside their mind, helping them do something. It evolves dynamically. It's not something you can plan. Just like a conversation, it's not something you can plan. So what you've done is, you've actually learned the essence of conversational hypnosis. Think about it. All conversations have an element of interaction. And all you have to do is discover at what point do you place attention and at what point do you shift attention. Now, it's a very simple principle to think about. Where attention goes, energy flows. And you've also seen that it can be very sophisticated in the way that you apply it and have some pretty dramatic results. Would that be a fair summary of your experiences? So would you be interested in finding a way of doing that without the vehicle? Because yesterday we just gave you the dynamic induction. It's just a process, a step-by-step vehicle that allows you to do something else. But you don't actually need the vehicle. It's just an easy way to grasp of a concept which is kind of shapeless and amorphous, which is really the same word. So would you be interested in learning how to do that just with your language, with no structure in particular? Something you do totally conversationally, and something that pretty much everyone that you meet will end up thinking they've just been dragged down the rabbit hole by Alice's White Rabbit, even if there's any kind of resistance. You know, they decide to go into trance, but I don't know if I should do it. What if you could use that very act of resistance as the process that gets them into trance? Wouldn't that be something interesting to learn? Now, believe it or not, you already have the primary tools that you need. Anyone care to guess? Anyone care to guess what the tools are that you will need to make that happen?
Plus.
Very good. So this is always got to be your starting point. What else do you need? Who said that? Intention or attention? Very true. So these two things together will create an almost infinite variety of hypnotic processes, both formal ones and, more importantly, covert, informal, conversational, whatever your word wants to be. So we're going to find out how to use this in an informal setting, in a covert setting, to get the result you want. Now, what are we putting attention on? See, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So we want the energy to go somewhere. What do we want the attention to go on? Great. Exactly. You want the attention on the unconscious. Because if more energy is flowing into unconscious processes, what do you get? You get an unconscious context. Isn't that what trance is about? Trance is just should we say, the lowering of the dominance of the conscious mind, the critical factor, the things that interfere, a lifting of the dominance of the unconscious, and then talking directly to that and saying, hey, do these things, change this a little bit, and then just return it back to the normal balance so they can get on with their day, right? So if you place attention on unconscious activity, well, if where attention goes, energy flows is correct, then you surely would be elevating the unconscious activity, hence getting a kind of trance response. Do you see how that works? But don't take my word for it. See if it matches the experiences you've had so far and the ones we're going to be having today. I'd like to talk to you about a couple of methods for doing this. You're already familiar with this, right? That's what we were doing last night. Right? The implication of meaning. You're already familiar with this. That's what we spent most of yesterday morning doing. A revivification. Can anyone see this? Let me just stand on this side. So you're familiar with the implication and you're familiar with revivification. These are maneuvers for getting the attention shifted to something which will allow you to create the context which will get you the result that you want. So do you see how these things build up on top of each other? But they're not the only things that you can do. Everyone, just become aware of your feet for a moment, if you would. Think about a pleasant experience as you feel a sensation in your feet. Now, you can hear my voice, of course, as you feel that sensation in that foot, and are thinking some pleasant thought. And I'd like you to sense the other people in the room. What have I done with your awareness? Do you notice how I'm actually just like a little searchlight, like a little torch, I'm going, have a look at this, have a look at that, right? How am I doing it? I mean, it's not rocket science. How am I doing it? Anyone? Thank you. These are called presuppositions of awareness, okay? You can call it attentional language if you want. So what are the kind of words we're talking about? See, hear, notice, think about, feel, sense, perceive, imagine. What was that? Listen. Any more? So what was over here? Remember. Beautiful. We've got imagine here. What else? What was that?
Become aware.
What was that on? Taste. Now, this didn't take you very long to create a pretty long list, right? And there are, of course, other words like that. The key thing is, you get that there is a connection between those words. There's a similarity, and that similarity is it allows you to direct attention. Yes? So let's go ahead. Who's this?
More tactile. More tactile.
More tactile. Well, it doesn't matter if they're tactile. You see, some of these are tactile, some of these are not. Some of these are totally sensory unspecific. So it's not about whether you can feel something or not. That's just one slice of that pie. The pie is anything that you are capable of perceiving. Right? That means your five senses. It also means that indistinct internal sense, which could be made up of those five senses, but could be made up of something else instead. Right? The key point is, you now have language that allows you to point someone's attention to where you want it to go. You have tools that allow you to make something of that. And now you have the control you need in order to be able to give someone a particular experience without having to have a formal structure around it. Does that make sense? Now, it'll make, of course, a lot more sense when we do an exercise. So, here's what we're going to do. Sure, why not? Find a partner. We'll only spend about 5 minutes apiece, so 10 minutes in total. Find a partner. You're going to start with 8+. Do you really need this? You don't really need this, do you? It's kind of simple, right? So I'll just put the steps down so it's easy to do. So, you start with H+. Why do we start with H+? Because you always start with H+, exactly. Because without that, nothing else works. Number 2. Ask the person about an experience that they're having right now. I'm not talking about a memory necessarily. I'm saying, what are you experiencing right now? And just scan your body, notice what you notice. They might tell you, got a gurgling in the stomach, I've got a thought here, I've got a pain there, I feel good here. It really doesn't matter what it is, right? As long as there's an experience wherever their mind happens to be on when you ask them. That's the experience, right? This is not difficult so far, right? Then, is where the juju begins. You're going to use your presuppositional language, your attentional language, let's call it the ALs. When you use your attentional language to move it to everything or anything that this isn't. It doesn't matter where, as long as it's not where they were. Does that make sense? So if this is x, this will be not x. And then you do it again. This now, not x, becomes, let's call that y. So now you use your language to move them to not y. Do you see how you're doing this? So wherever the attention is at, you're now going to move it to where it wasn't.
And then are we getting their feedback of what their new point of attention is?
It's only a game. Oh, when you get there, sure. Well, no, you don't need that much feedback because you'll be showing them where to go.
And what I'm not understanding is the first thing we've said is ask them to tell us where their attention is.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to...
What are you sensing right now?
I am sensing the pen in my hand.
The pen in your hand, right? So what's happened to your foot?
It's still resting on the floor.
The foot is still resting on the floor, isn't it? And have you really paid attention to your breathing?
Not until you bring it to my attention.
That's right. But that breathing is continuing, isn't it? And what about your blinking? That's right. Very good. By the way, notice the cataleptic hand? 3 movements return sit. And you thought catalepsy was hard, right? You see how quick this works? Now, in any other context, it might say, oh, this guy's messing with me a little bit, but no one really realizes that something hypnotic is actually happening. Now, this isn't profound hypnosis. This is not like hallucinating dragons hypnosis. But it's getting inside someone's mind and it's beginning to do it. This is not induction yet. This is just an exercise to get you used to controlling attention. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, folks, any questions? Or are we just ready to dive in head first? Find a partner, 5 minutes apiece, and just shift attention and see what happens. How do you use this? Everyone enjoy this? Kind of interesting, right? Notice how you don't have to be like drooling like an idiot to be in trance. Kind of fun, yes? So, but this is just an exercise. This is not really an induction. This is not really a hypnotic process per se. What do you do with this? How do you use it?
For a party game.
For what?
For a party game.
For a party game. Sure, actually, why not? It's fun, and it makes the brain think, right? I like that. We have to have like a new seminar on party games, right? So this is an example of a lot of different maneuvers you can do. Did you notice yourself accidentally switching sensory modalities? You know, you see something and they feel something, and how you had to make a really mental leap to be able to switch that way, right? And that had an effect on you. Did anyone try going from external to internal?
Yes.
Things from the outside, things to the inside. That had an effect, right? Anyone play with this? This is quite a fun one, which not a lot of people think about. Foreground, background. Right now you're all looking at me, but what about the wall behind me? So without even shifting your attention, you can actually shift your attention without shifting your focus. You can see the flip charts, now you see me. Now you see the flip charts, now you see me. Flip charts, me. Flip charts, me. Isn't that weird how that happens? Now I don't even have to say it. It's still happening, right? So you have lots of tools in your toolbox for shifting attention, but you've got to have some kind of a reason for using them. You have to have a roadmap inside your mind that says, even though there's not a formal structure, we're trying to achieve a certain thing with it.